And meanwhile, Krystal, let's turn to the Democrats because Rahm Emanuel went on the I've Had It podcast. And this comes as David Hogg is facing tough questions over, not just from the media, by the way, but also from Hakeem Jeffries. I think we have a clip of that over his pledge to actually have a robust primary effort against the Democratic status quo. Let's take a look at this clip. Let's start with this clip of Rahm Emanuel, rumored 2028 presidential candidate, on the I've Had It podcast. This was released yesterday. Take a look.
So what have you had it with?
I would say we have a series of topics that I think sometimes consume and other topics that don't actually get the attention that they should get. And we ended up fighting for the wrong things. We were really south on kitchen table issues. We weren't really good about the family room issues.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you 100
Okay, the only room we were doing really well was the bathroom. And that's the smallest room in the house.
That is such bullshit. That is total bullshit. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative. And I'm so sick of Democrats like you selling out and saying this. You know who talks about trans people more than anybody? MAGA. Kamala Harris talked about homeownership. She talked about kitchen table issues. Trump's over there droning on about Hannibal Lecter. Are you kidding me? This is where the Democrats lose because we're playing the game with the rule book. They've read the rule book up and are cramming it down everybody's throat. And Democrats are upset because Joe Biden pardoned his son. We got to fucking fight. They're the gender-obsessed weirdos, not us. We're the ones who fight for Social Security. We fight for Medicare. And yeah, we're not going to bully trans people. We're not going to fucking do it. Fine.
I mean, I love this lady. I don't know. I did not know they existed until like a week ago. So Emily, give me the backstory here and your antipathy towards it, because I enjoyed her giving it to Rahm Emanuel, even though my view is like in a nuanced way different from hers. But I just enjoyed her being like, the problem is people like you, Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah, no, I mean that was deeply cathartic to watch, of course, because Rahm Emanuel is sort of squirming. He's like, you also seem to be a wealthy Democrat. Why are you yelling at me on this podcast?
He thought he was giving her exactly the answer. Oh, yes, you're right. The bathroom, too much and not enough the kitchen table. And she's like, fuck you, basically. I mean, the one, before I hear their like backstory and what they've been up to, the thing that I would say is that the reason that the party has become has lost its credibility on kitchen table issues is because of people like Rahm Emanuel. So you don't get to now come in here and pretend like, oh, you understand and you're the savior of the Democratic Party. No, you are what's wrong with the Democratic Party. And she's also right that, like, you know, the reason why Republicans are successful at, or were successful, I don't think they're particularly successful at this anymore, but were successful leading into this election of painting Kamala Harris as being, you know, just concerned with these sort of like niche, unpopular issues, is because Democrats don't have a broader narrative of what they're fighting for, a la Bernie Sanders and the oligarchy, where it's like, okay, yeah, he's, you know, he supports trans rights, but no one is going to say that's like the thing, the core of everything that he is focused on. So, you know, that's why I say my view is like subtly different from hers, because really the problem is that the way Republicans were able to successfully paint the Democratic Party as being overly concerned with issues that were not top of mind priorities for them is people like Rahm Emanuel and their abandonment of the working class and affirmative alignment of the Democratic Party with corporate interests.
Well, her point, I mean, something that we've covered, and I think is a helpful point that both you and Ryan have made for a long time, it really undermines the point she's making that it's the right wing that was talking about all of this stuff for a long time. Like, I don't disagree, obviously, that the right has exploited some like culture war issues that I think are really serious, and they do it for red meat purposes. Like when the RNC played Richmond north of Richmond at a debate. Was that the RNC? I think it was. I think it was a decision from the RNC to play it.
I think that's right. There certainly was a lot of enthusiasm for the song at the time.
But the RNC usually is just like so grating in so many different ways. So I don't disagree with that point. But these issues were used as shields by corporate Democrats who were actually talking about them disproportionately to distract from their oligarchical policies on like labor and families and all of that. So that undermines the point she's making, that it's just the crazy right-wing people who were talking about these things. Actually, there was a concerted effort by corporate America to embrace things like DEI and ESG to shield, to placate the left. And so that's what really pisses me off about that. And it pisses me off when Rahm Emanuel is also suddenly coming out in 2025 and acting like it's a really like big point that he's brave for making, and he can sort of design this presidential run around. Like, it is just so stupid. So profoundly stupid.
It also, if he does want to, I mean, I don't really take seriously this whole like he wants to run for president or whatever, but him, Gavin Newsom, there's a handful of them that are so out of touch with where the Democratic base is now.
Well, and again, like, he's someone who worked for Barack Obama, and Gavin Newsom is somebody who has not like exactly been kicking the left to the curb. Like, if they really were good at reading the political winds, they would probably be coming to this in a way closer to her. To be honest, because the Rahm Emanuel, Gavin Newsom approach is getting pilloried on social media. Like, even Charlie Kirk, who had that conversation with Newsom about trans stuff, has come out and been like, oh, so he was just lying. Like, they were face to face having this great conversation. But Gavin Newsom is now getting hit from the left and from the right. He's not making the right happy, and he's not making the left happy. So if they were actually really adept at reading the political wind, they would sound closer to the I've Had It podcast girls, who my beef with goes back to Bravo World. They had a show on Bravo called Sweet Home Oklahoma, and we don't even need to open this can of worms, but
no, open it. Open the worms. I want to know. I want to know what's in these worms.
I hate, like, I just really hate the whole, like, corporate America, like, propping up the hick lib thing. It just drives me nuts. I can't stand it, because what I think like genuinely lacks representation in that world is like people who are hicks but not libs. And so I think corporate America just like soothes itself by saying, oh, we checked off the Oklahoma box, but they can throw people out there who are utterly unrepresentative of probably most of Oklahoma. So anyway.
So you're judging them for their identity. I get it.
For their identity,
I get it.
yes.
You wanted a different framing of identity politics.
I want affirmative action for fascists.
Conservative
Krystal.
hicks.
Affirmative action for fascists.
It's like the same thing that the Trump administration sent to Harvard. Like, you can only MAGA is allowed into your school now. Sorry. Only MAGA professors heading the physics department, et cetera.
Representation for Curtis Yarvin in academia is DEI worth doing. Let's get to David Hogg, actually, because like we could have a serious discussion about that at a different point. But that's basically the backstory of my beef.
Okay, of your antipathy towards them. Okay.
Yes, well, exactly. Well, but it's funny.
I'm enjoying them. I want to try to get them on the show.
The Oliver Anthony thing actually kind of connects to it, by the way, which is that like the right uses Oliver Anthony and thought like, oh, we finally found someone that we can elevate, who's like this working class guy. But they didn't love it when he started coming out against Republicans either. Right. Like, this is actual representation of how people think, but it's never convenient to people who elevate them. So anyway, David Hogg. Let's roll this clip of David Hogg tussling with Major Garrett on CBS, because Hogg, as we've covered before, is now supporting this idea of a fairly robust primary campaign against establishment Democrats. So let's roll E2.
Let me let you address some social media criticism you've gotten. Matt Bennett from the Clinton-Gore era. This is insane behavior. John Anzalone, pollster most recently for President Biden.
Yeah.
$20 million should be spent on swing state legislative races, meaning state legislative races, and down ballot, not on this. Steve Shale, a Florida Democratic strategist, saying the DNC's vice chair should be focused on this kind of engagement, meaning engaging in places in battleground states where Democrats have lost ground, not over which Dem in a plus 20 seat should be primaried and knocked out.
You know, look at the last results of the previous election. Those are the purported experts that brought us here. Just to say, it's not personal, right? I don't take those attacks personally in this regard. This is a strategic disagreement. And I want to be clear. All this money that we're raising is not only being spent on primaries by any means. That is the story that a lot of journalists and media run with. We are working.
What else are you going to spend it on?
We're also going to be spending it on frontline seats where great young people are running, right, if they are the Democratic nominee, to make sure we're bringing in fresh faces to Congress. Right now, we talk about diversity all the time in Congress. One of the things we don't talk about as much in regard to that is age. Currently, if we had the same number of 25 to 30-year-olds in Congress as we do proportionally to the population, we would have over 40 people under the age of 30 in Congress. And I don't know if you've looked at Congress recently. We have one that is under the age of 30. That is not good for the future of the Democratic Party. Is this just out with the old and in with the new? I would say no. This is out with the ineffective and in with the effective, because we need members who are ready to meet this moment to fight back against Donald Trump. And what that looks like are people like Senator Van Hollen, who are literally going to El Salvador to say this man needs to come back. It looks like people like Cory Booker, who, mind you, did primary somebody to get to that position. It looks like people, in many ways, like Hakeem Jeffries, who primaried multiple people to get to that position, right? This is a healthy process for our party, and I think we should have an embrace of it when it doesn't risk us losing the House.
Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom is also giving more interviews on his attempt to right the ship of the Democratic Party. We can put the next element up on the screen. This is E3. He gave an interview to The Hill yesterday where he said, "We have not done a forensic of what just went wrong, period, full stop. I don't think it, I know it. I mean, to the extent that I'm marginally part of his party. I represent the state larger than 21 state populations combined, and I can assure you there's not been a party discussion that I'm aware of that has included the state of California. I don't know what the party is." He said, "I'm still struggling with that." Gavin, maybe people aren't considering the state of California as prominently as you want them to because the state of California is in utter disrepair. Maybe that has something to do with it. Well done, Gavin, on that. We can move to the next element as well. This is another comment from him about when he had Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon on. He says, what I feel was exactly, to me, Exhibit A of what I feel is wrong right now with my party, an unwillingness to even engage in platform to listen. And so I'm testing that. At the same time, I'm being tested by it because the reaction has been a little more bumpy than I anticipated. And
you know, this is such bullshit from him. Honestly, it's such bullshit because the vast majority of people who were unhappy, myself included, with the Charlie Kirk and the Steve Bannon interviews, it wasn't because he platformed them. It's because it was a softball interview. You elevated them. You made them look good, even as they were the whole time taking jabs at him. I mean, Charlie Kirk from the outset was like, "Oh, you don't let your son stay home from school to meet me? Why not? You closed the schools during COVID." You know, the whole thing with Steve Bannon, I think it was, I can't remember who it was that said this on Twitter, was like, Gavin Newsom being like, "Oh, you're amazing and I appreciate you," and Steve Bannon being like, "You're a demon." So the problem wasn't platforming them. It was, Gavin Newsom, we know you're actually good at debating. We saw you do it with Ron DeSantis very effectively. Make the case for your principles. Make the case for like a liberal view, you know, an appealing Democratic Party. They used you on your own platform to further their ideology. So, yeah, of course, the Democratic base is not going to be psyched about what you were doing there. And, you know, it was not like it was just Democratic elites or influencers online or whatever. Look at how he's faring in these early, who do you want as the next Democratic leader? Like the Democratic base was disgusted by this approach because there truly is. And I think that you see Chris Van Hollen and you see Maxwell Frost, and you see other Democrats who I think have been coming around to, okay, we got to do something. We got to be more aggressive. We got to use the tools that we have, et cetera. But that has been led by a base that has been utterly disgusted with the failures of people like Gavin Newsom to put up a fight, who were much more inclined, whose instincts were all in the direction of let me just lay down and capitulate. And with Gavin Newsom in particular, like, I know where it comes from. It's because he's so close with all of these Silicon Valley donors who are all super jealous of the, you know, Mark Andreessens and the Elon Musk and whatever of the world who jumped on the other side. And so they're not getting their goodies now because they picked the wrong team. And that's who has his ear and why he so profoundly misread this political moment in terms of what the Democratic base wants.
That's really interesting. Let's roll this clip of Hakeem Jeffries responding to the Hogg aligned efforts to potentially primary some candidates, which were, I mean, I think similarly tone deaf, though not unpredictably tone deaf. So let's roll the clip.
Well, I look forward to standing behind every single Democratic incumbent, from the most progressive to the most centrist and all points in between. Primaries are a fact of life, but here's the thing. I'm going to really focus on trying to defeat Republican incumbents so we can take back control of the House of Representatives and begin the process of ending this national nightmare that's being visited upon us by far-right extremism.
So, I mean, that's his job, Krystal. He's not going to come out and be like, yeah, we got some old people we want to just give the boot. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, listen, if he actually holds to that, that would be an improvement. Because in the past...
The APAC.
Yeah, in the past, the Democratic Party has, stood behind their, like, corporate-aligned members. But if a Jamal Bowman or Cori Bush or Rashida Tlaib gets primaried, they're good with that. They're good with that. So, if he actually, listen, I understand if you are you're the House Majority Leader and these are your people and you're just going to uniformly back whoever the incumbent Democrat is. I mean, I don't support that, but at least, that's a principle of neutrality ideologically, but that has not historically been the case within the Democratic Party. And so that's what they're really upset about with regard to David Hogg. Is they're worried that, he is going to be on the side of, people who are more progressive, who are even outside of the ideological valence, who just, actually understand that what they're up against, that they're up against this authoritarian takeover, that the stakes are quite high, that they need to be visible, that they understand social media. And, I was actually a little bit hopeful about David Hogg coming into this position. I argued with Sagar on the show about this simply because he is younger and he does at least understand the current media ecosystem. And that is something that is sorely lacking within the Democratic Party. And so I think that it has already borne out that to have him as DNC vice chair and be like, yeah, if you are a weak and ineffective Democrat who's been around too long, we're going to come for you. I mean, to me, that is an extraordinarily positive development that I think will be wildly supported by the Democratic base at this point, which really has, Eric Blanc was saying this too early in our interview, really has become much more radicalized in this Trump era and much more disenchanted with a lot of Democratic leadership.
Yeah, I think you were totally vindicated in that about David Hogg. And I think I was pretty skeptical of it. And maybe I'll be vindicated in that way too, in like a cultural sense. I don't know that Hogg is right, but this is, I think, probably outweighs that. To be honest, like coming out and saying no, you have to put the fear of God in the Democratic Party's establishment, and they just haven't had that. This is very like Mitch McConnell versus Ted Cruz circa like 2014, and it's kind of what the Democrats need, to be honest, because there's been a lot of going along to get along. Doesn't mean you have to burn the party down, but you have to threaten to burn the party down. Otherwise, you don't get anything. Now, you don't negotiate with Donald Trump on tariffs, but you can, have some measure of serious, just mount a serious threat. Otherwise, you don't get taken seriously. So I think that argument about Hogg has been vindicated so far. And Krystal, this is just, genuinely a very difficult problem for Democrats to solve on the cultural front, because the people like Rahm Emanuel and Gavin Newsom, they're the ones who were happy to use these issues as shields, and now they're happy. That they don't believe anything, because just as quickly as they embraced all of this, and you have Gavin Newsom on tape waxing, sanctimonious about the Latinx community, just as quickly as he did that, he's literally saying, no, I would never use that word. So that's how he believes literally nothing. And they were using these issues all along they were exploiting these issues all along as shields, and they're not willing to go along with the genuine anti-oligarchy policies. And that's the crossroads that, as I see it at least, is really difficult for Democrats. As by the way, what was really difficult for Republicans is the Tea Party base was actually more similar to Occupy Wall Street than anybody wanted to admit. And they never were, they were willing to sort of do these cultural signifiers, we need term limits and we need to screw Mitch McConnell. But not until Trump came along, and even to this day with Donald Trump in office, they're not really willing to wrap their arms fully around the policy agenda that a lot of their working class voters would want them to. And that's the impasse that Democrats find themselves at too.
Yeah, I mean, liberal elites and the Rahm Emanuel types did virtue signaling, and on the Republican side, they do vice signaling. Like but it functions the same. It's the same function. We were talking about Pete Hegseth earlier, and it's like he can, talk all about DEI and make people feel like there's something revolutionary going on at the Pentagon. And meanwhile, he's like, oh, and we got $1 trillion budget. So yay, it's going to be the biggest military budget ever in the history of the world. So, this was used as a Trojan horse also for a lot of the DOGE agenda of completely defenestrating the ability to regulate corporate America. If you just say conservatives are being debanked or cancel culture or DEI or wokeness enough times, they felt like they could smuggle in this pro-oligarch agenda. And so, at this point, the wing of the party that has most stepped up to fight has been the left, or at least left liberals.
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC really set the mark. When I watch MSNBC and you got Nicole Wallace out there, they're the leaders of the party and they're doing a great job and they're doing everything right. I'm like, what is even going on here? I mean, it's so profoundly different. I can't even wrap my head around it. And the cynical take is, well, that's all nice, well, and good now that Bernie is too old and is never going to run for president again. I do think that there is some of that now it's sort of more safe for them to embrace him.
Yeah.
But I also think there is a genuine divide among people who genuinely wanted to fight Trump and saw his threat for what it was, but thought that the way to do it was through, democracy talk, fascism talk, and a standard liberal approach like Joe Biden. And so those are people who, genuinely understood the stakes and want to fight. And now that the information has showed them that was not the right way to fight, they are shifting their approach. And I think much of the Democratic base falls into that camp. And people like Rahm Emanuel, who I wouldn't say they don't believe in anything. He believes in his own ambition. He believes in serving corporate interests. And so even though the writing is on the wall about what would be more effective to combat Trump and Trumpism, they are not going to change because they're ideologically committed to preserving a certain status quo that is deeply unpopular in the country.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.